I don't know.
I'm writing it down first of all. First time ever.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing for the invocation by Pastor William Wilson of the Choose United Methodist Church. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we thank you for this day that we can gather together. We thank you for our elected leaders. We thank you for this community and the blessings of it. We thank you for each one that gives of his or her time in service for you, whether it be on the council, whether it be in public service, whether it be an emergency, or whatever case it might be. Those who give of their time, we thank you. Now bless us this evening. May we discern the needs of our community and work for the good of all people. For we pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the scheduled meetings of the Township Council, established and adopted by the Township Council with schedule designated the time, date, and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. We're using electronic amplifying and recording device in order to obtain audible and clear record. We request that all those wishing to speak be recognized and state your name and address correctly into the microphone. Recording device to be solely utilized by the Township Clerk's Office shall be the official record of the Township Council meeting. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison.
Present.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Seiler.
Present.
Mrs. Ginta. Here. Mrs. Strada. Here. Mr. Mercado.
Present.
Mr. Van Koenig.
Present.
Mayor. Mr. Malta.
Present.
Mr. Leffner.
Here.
Chief Earl.
Here.
Mr. Carlemere.
Here.
Mr. Carter.
Here.
We do have a presentation. I know it's not on the agenda, but we have Aerial VFW Post 5794 wanting to honor a EMT of the Year. Commander Philip Williams.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you all need the microphone if you need to.
I have a booming voice, but you can use the microphone.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to thank you all so very much for allowing us to be here. To the President of the Council, the Vice President, and to everyone that's on Council, to the Chief, and I know the Mayor's not here tonight, but also to respect to the Mayor as well. On behalf of the VFW, I have here tonight just a few of our wonderful members here tonight. We have them here because one of the things we are finding out, and we now know that Gloucester Township is one of these wonderful fast-growing townships. And as those who are currently serving overseas, they're returning back to this wonderful state of New Jersey, and they're settling back here in this wonderful great town that we call Gloucester Township. And of course, our little slice of the pie, Ariel, New Jersey as well. And here before us tonight, I have George Carr. I have someone who's up from Houston, Texas here, Sergeant John Lightfoot. I also have returning from, both of them are Afghanistan returned veteran, Brandon Pierce, and of course, our longtime resident of Ariel, Dr. Fish. And as we know that they're returning back and they're coming back to this wonderful township, one of the great things that we do know that for sometimes we pick up the phone in a case of emergency, and we don't always, and we expect someone always to be there. And we just know that the Area Ambulance Squad have always been there when the calls come in. And tonight, we want to recognize one of Ariel's EMT and the VFW and the Post 5794 in the great state of New Jersey. The VFW has selected, if we can have Dalton Smith to come up. He has been selected as the local post VFW, but also I wanted to inform him as he come up tonight, is that he's also been selected to as the state, and that judging starts this week as well. So not only took it here locally, but at the county level, and now he's going to be as one of those EMTs competing to represent the state of New Jersey and Washington, D.C. So, Dalton, if you come by, I want to say congratulations on behalf of this wonderful post and the wonderful township of Gloucester Township. We want to present you with a plaque in recognition of the outstanding dedication of community service with the Aerial Ambulance Squad. So we want to present to you congratulations. Keep up the wonderful work. We know that it's not every day we get a chance to thank them personally, but I know I always keep a little thing up my sleeve because we always want to recognize, because we know that you don't get here by yourself. You need the wonderful community support, but more importantly, you need the wonderful family support. So I know we have mom, dad, sister, grandma, and uncle. So if you all can please stand. We didn't let you get away that easy. I know everyone on council who knows how we operate can't get away that easy. Thank you all so very much. I know this has been a tough week, and I know you are so proud of it, and so are we. So once again, thank you so very much, partner.
I just want to say thanks to my captain from Aerial Ambulance Squad, Tommy, for nominating me for this award, and thanks to all the members of Aerial Volunteer Ambulance Squad for all their support. Thanks.
On behalf of council and the mayor, congratulate Dalton Smith and thank Aerial VFW. You're always involved so much in our community in various different ways, and we appreciate that. And we thank you. We thank you, Commander, for your leadership as well.
Thank you all so very much for your madness.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll give them a couple minutes, and we'll resume in about 2 or 3 minutes. Call the meeting back to order. We'll now have our first public portion. Anyone wishing to speak on any agenda item only, please raise your hand and come to the microphone. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Joe Reed, Millbridge section of Gloucester Township. I'd like to address Ordinance 12-06, specifically Section 7. item K.
That's it.
That's an examination, once again, of Blackwood Clementon Road. For the newer members of council, the same thing was done a few years ago. I'd like to read a section of Gloucester Township's website. It goes on to say, in 2006, Gloucester Township received 2 planning grants totaling $91,000 to study the Blackwood Clementon Commercial District between Ariel and Laurel Roads. It goes on to say, the grants were combined to fund a study which analyzed conditions and recommended ways to rejuvenate the corridor. And finally, it says, by March 2008, the Grayfield study was complete. So we've already spent $91,000 for that, and now we're issuing bonds for an additional $47,475 as an initial payment, I believe it says. Estimated total cost, I'm sorry. I haven't read all 60 pages of the Greystone report. I read about a third of it, and it's enough to understand that what that engineering company, planning company saw at that time, which their report is dated December 2007. I understand by the time council got it in committees and discussed it, it probably took until March 2008, which oddly enough is, as you probably can imagine, 4 years ago this month. It was never touched. From what I can find out, the report was discussed, analyzed, regurgitated, and put on a shelf. And now we want to spend another $47,475 initially to determine what was determined back then, which was the road layout's poor, conditions are such that drivers, I guess, clearly don't look to the sides. The initial construction was permitted to build the businesses too far back from the roadway, and then other structures were permitted to be built in front of them to block it, doomed from the beginning. I live in Millbridge. The buildings that are empty now were empty then. To study it again and spend another who knows what just to confirm what was said 4 years ago is kind of silly. You know, I told you what it says. You know, I'm only going to charge you $25,000 for it, so just send me an invoice and pay it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Seeing no other hands, I'll close the first public portion minutes.
Waive the reading and accept the minutes of January 23rd, February 13th, and February workshop.
Motion to accept the minutes? So moved. On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison? Yes. Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Steiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Gintek? Yes. Mrs. Strato? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Pinkini?
Yes. We have ordinances of first reading. Ordinance O-12-05. Ordinance amending Chapter 55 of the Code of the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden, New Jersey, entitled Garbage, Rubbish, and Waste. This ordinance is being revised to include all the new recyclable requirements that have been instituted in the township. This was also done in conjunction with the recycling coordinator. And is there anything else to add to that?
No, it's a complete revision of our solid waste collection ordinance. The rest is pretty much consistent with what has already been in the ordinance, but it incorporates all the requirements that have been established under the single stream recycling. And as you indicated, there's a lot of time spent with the recycling coordinator as to what they felt was important to be put in. It's a pretty detailed ordinance as it stands.
I have a motion to approve the ordinance.
So moved. Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Steiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Gintek? Yes. Mrs. Strato? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Pinkini?
Yes. Ordinance O-12-06. Bond ordinance authorizing the acquisition of various pieces of capital equipment and the construction and completion of various capital improvements in and for the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden, New Jersey, appropriating a sum of $5,374,912, therefore, authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds or bond anticipation notes of the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden, New Jersey, in the aggregate principal amounts of up to $5,118,964, making certain determination and covenants and authorizing certain related actions in connection with the foregoing. As the ordinance title states, this bond ordinance is for the authorization and the funding of the capital improvement budget. Motion to adopt.
So moved. Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ginta?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Banky?
Yes. Ordinance O-12-07, refunding bond ordinance providing for the funding of an energy savings improvement program for the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden, New Jersey, authorizing the issuance of up to $2,250,000 of general obligation refunding bonds of the Township to finance the cost thereof, making certain determination and covenants in connection therewith, and authorizing certain related actions in connection with the foregoing. This ordinance will allow the Township to enter into a joint venture agreement between Gloucester Township, the Black Horse Pike Regional School District for energy savings. Motion to adopt.
So moved. Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ginta?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Banky?
Yes. Now have resolutions of consent agenda. Any council person wishing to remove any of these resolutions, please let me know now.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda. Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ginta?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Banky?
Yes.
66, resolution declaring default of LW Estates Incorporated for Laurelwood Estates.
This resolution declares in default LW Estates, known as Laurelwood Estates. That's a development that has not been completed by the developer, and we're now going after the insurance to the bond money to make the final repairs. Motion to adopt.
So moved. Second.
On the question, roll call.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ginta?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Banky?
Yes.
67, resolution of the Township Council, the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden, New Jersey, authorizing the preparation and submission of an application to the local finance board pursuant to NJSA 40A 2-51.
This is a resolution for Gloucester Township to authorize the preparation and submission of an application to the Finance Board. This is for the ESIP project, which is the Energy Savings Improvement Program. Tom, anything to add to that?
Well, it's a refunding bond, so what needs to be demonstrated to the local finance board is that the savings associated with the upgrades over a 15-year period offset the debt service.
Motion to adopt?
So moved. Second.
On the question? Roll call?
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ginta?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Banky?
Yes.
068, resolution introducing the 2012 fiscal year budget.
As the title states, this resolution introduces the 2012 fiscal year budget, a budget that is with a zero increase for the third straight budget year in a row. Tom, you want to do any highlights on that, please?
You're correct, and on behalf of David Mayer, I'd like to present the budget to you. The amount to be raised in the budget is $37,346,064, which is the exact same amount to be raised from last year. This budget is under the appropriation cap by $205,381. We also had a cap bank of $376,134, and it is under the levy cap by $2,583,547.
Motion to approve this resolution.
So moved. Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ginta?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado? Mr. Banky?
Yes.
RA 1308, Stetzer Maritime American Legion Post 281, calendar year 2012.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Ms. Gentech?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Bianchini?
Yes. There is no mayor's report, and I do not have any GTE Gov access questions. So we'll move to the second public portion, and wishing to speak on any subject, please raise your hand, come to the microphone. Darren?
Thank you my name's Darren Gladden, 44 Greensway. Thank you for approving your budget. A couple things I want to talk about. Even though you said our taxes haven't raised municipality, but the other taxes, like our school taxes and our county taxes, have raised during those years. So, you know what I mean? People have come to me and said, well, my tax bill, $200. And you guys are running off that you guys are not raising taxes. Well, one thing, we have a lot of county roads in our town, okay, and they're horrible. And we send our tax-paying dollars to the county, is that correct? Now, is my council and mayor ready to take a stand against the county and tell them they got to start taking care of their roads better? I mean, the one road that I drive down, there's like a mountain of asphalt on the side of the curb just coming out, pushing itself out. So are they trying to make a road out of the asphalt that's coming out of the potholes? I mean, look, it's horrible, these roads. So I'm saying, is there a possible way for our government, our local government, to put something in the escrow account and saying, listen, until you take care of our roads better, we're not sending any of our Gloucester Township tax-paying dollars to the county. Can we do something like that?
Dave, I would ask that question.
No, you cannot.
So how are you going to get the roads fixed?
You are obligated to collect and transmit, just as you are obligated to collect and transmit to school boards and fire districts.
Are they obligated to fix the potholes?
Yes.
And why aren't they doing it?
Well, Darren, I can tell you this, I believe in Tom, maybe you can correct me, or Lenny. I believe we are in contact with the county on those issues. When they get reported or we find them, we do report them out. I would ask maybe Mr. Moffett if you can talk to your counterpart in the county and see if there's any details on when they will be available or when they're coming into our neighborhood. Maybe if you can come up with a list of some of the areas that are in dire need, and maybe you can help them along in identifying them.
Can I add to that, Glenn?
Sure, sure.
Mr. Gladden, you talked about potholes for the last week. Possibly you can identify those potholes.
Oh, I could possibly identify.
In writing.
And right, I can possibly identify them, testify to them, or drive down the road with them.
We can forward that to the Public Works Department and the Mayor's office.
Okay,
You're telling us 37 identified.
Okay, first of all, you have pothole hotlines for the county too, and we have called them, and people I know many people have called that
Well, if
hotline.
in writing, then we can move forward with it.
Okay, and we will.
And just
Thank
a
you.
clarification, we didn't approve the budget today. Today was the introduction.
Okay, introduction. Okay,
And we will be meeting, correct, Mr. President,
Yes.
in the next few weeks.
okay, to look over the budget. Okay, thank you.
Also, Mr. President, if I can just make a comment that they did, I have been in contact with them, and they do have a list of the roads that they're going to do. They did do part of Sicklerville Road, which is one that we had put on the list, and they're going to continue the rest of it. But they did read to me a list of the order.
All right, thank you.
As the clerk points out accurately to me, we do need to establish a date for the public hearing on the budget. I don't know what is the meeting schedule.
Do we need to do that right now?
Yeah, you need that because it needs to go on the resolution.
Why don't you come up and I'll have Mr. Pallador come up and ask his question. Mr. Pallador?
Good evening, Council. Ray Polidoro, Ariel. I have a few questions. The most important one, I guess Mr. Cardis would probably want to address. Since 2009 and before, our red light cameras had gone up and different sources of revenue have come about. Has our revenue risen every year from 2009 to the current year?
As the amount realized in miscellaneous revenue, yes.
Okay. Do you have, and I won't hold you to exact figures, from 2009, 10, 11, and this year, on an average, what would you say?
Wouldn't be able to spell that out to
How about for this year from last year? That would be easy to come to mind?
you. The fund balance this year available was $5 million. I don't recall what the fund balance was last year that was available. I can tell you what we used in the budget, and that was $2,080,558 in last year's budget. This
Okay.
year, we're using $3,800,000.
Okay, as far as the revenues, the total overall revenues that come to our township, do you have any idea what they may be above what they were last year?
Other than just to tell you that the fund balance is a number that's around $5 million.
All right, is that something that you can get for me, even if I have to come meet with you at your office? I'd like to know how much our revenue has gone up, what we have coming in from 2009, 2010, 11, and this year. The reason I ask that question is, my gut tells me that we're doing well with revenue rising in the township, and yet we seem to find more and more things to spend money on and borrow money on. And it seems at some point, being proud of a zero increase budget is great politically, but for taxpayers, if there's an abundance of revenue coming in that we didn't have, maybe we would consider lowering our taxes rather than spending our money. Is that feasible?
I do not believe so, because at some point, we will have dwindling revenues. For example, we've anticipated 2 million, hold on one second. And it's the right thing to do because we're realizing it at this point. For the red light cameras, last year, because we didn't know what we were dealing with, we anticipated $1,230,000. This year, we bumped that number by $1 million, so we're anticipating $2,230,000. So when you're anticipating that, you're not going to generate additional revenue because you've already anticipated that in the budget.
Well, we also have things that we don't anticipate that may be windfalls and various purchases that may not have come to fruition. Overall question is,
What are you referring to?
it could be anything, and again, that's something you would know well, much better than I would, but my question simply is, with red light cameras and various businesses opening and revenues going up and, taking abatements into consideration, I think maybe this council should consider looking at the revenue. Maybe there's a few things we don't need to buy. Maybe there's a few solar issues that we don't need to invest bonds into right now, and maybe look at that extra revenue and maybe not even leveling the taxes off, but maybe do something unrealistic to, local government and lower people's property taxes. The state and the governor can't do this by himself. Taxes are local, we pay county, we pay state, but locally, our revenues are going up enough where sooner or later it has to warrant lowering our taxes.
Well, in mentioning the solar projects are not going to be funded through our budget, they're funded through grants and if issued PPAs, which are third-party placement for installation of solar panels.
Not a dollar of our taxpayer money will go to any solar projects whatsoever.
They pay back any monies, any costs that were incurred, get paid back by the PPA when they're awarded the contract. So let's say, for example, Owens Corning, Project Navigator has that project right now. They're moving forward, talking to PSE&G about the grid. At some point that we believe will come to fruition. At that point, they will then pay us back the monies that we spent to set that up. And also out there, we're going to be supplying most, if not all, of the power to the Cheese Landing School from that site. That's the plan.
Understood. Thank you. Next item, may follow up on Mr. Reed's question. We're going to spend $47,000 to take another look at Blackwood Clementon Road to see how we can improve it. And it seems to me, and the folks that I talk to, there's a lot of people avoiding Blackwood Clementon Road because there's 4 red light cameras. And they'll go around College Drive, and they'll go out Laurel Road. I think in studying what can we do to make it better, we've chased people from that by putting the red light cameras there. And again, I will reemphasize, as I've said for probably the 3rd time, I don't think we need 4. 2 I can see, but 4, we're chasing people from there. You're not going to build business when you're chasing people from that road. You mentioned in energy savings, a joint effort between the Township and the Black Horse Pike Regional School District you did not mention who the contractor would be and that's going to be joining Township and the Black Horse Bike. Who would that be?
Consultant, or are you talking about who's going to do the install?
Both.
I believe the install is by Hutchison, and the consultant for the township is Blue Sky Power.
Blue Sky Power and Hutchinson.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I know, George, you're clear. The newspapers have been bringing to our attention the effort that Camden City has been putting forth towards, they're just repackaging countywide police and call it regionalized, and we've all had our eye to that. In the past, I've asked what this township is going to do to protect our police department, and keep our officers here, but I also want to know, besides every attempt in keeping our officers here in township, what are we going to keep our tax dollars here? Because when they regionalize that, it's going to be a county effort. And again, they're going to be reaching into our pockets. And Camden City's not our problem. Gloucester Township is. But it's edging forward. And we had this discussion, when this comes about, you would deal with it. And it looks like it's about ready to bear fruit. What is this township prepared to do to protect the taxpayers of Gloucester Township from participating, and it's only tax dollars where we will be participating in a regionalized, otherwise countywide police? Have you taken any action? Have you looked at it? And have you discussed what you're going to do to protect our tax dollars and keep them in the pockets of our police officers?
Well, you know our support is obviously for our police department. I think we've shown that by the hirings that we recently have done in front. Dave, I don't think, I believe, and I don't want to speak, so correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's a regional police force, there would have to be an interlocal agreement, and there would have to be some sort of funding mechanism that's agreed upon by the township. So I don't believe that would, if we're not participating, which we aren't, then that would not affect us. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's my understanding. I haven't seen the proposed plan and how they're going to fund it and process it, but everything that they put out indicates that the cost is going to be incurred by the towns that opt through their interlocal agreements to participate with the plan. They're the ones that are going to bear the cost of the county metro police.
Because it just seems that if you open a door with water on the other side, once the water starts coming, the water will pour in. On that note also, the thing that we were concerned about when the pay-to-play was brought about is how it might exclude us from participating with other townships in doing so. That was council's statement. Now, if we were to pass a pay-to-play ban, might it not also keep us from participating in the rest of the county that doesn't have a pay-to-play ban? Doesn't that live by the sword, die by the sword plan work in our favor if we pass pay-to-play? Well, if we knew it one way, it would be pretty obvious that it would work in our favor if that would be the case. Is that correct?
I don't know if I can answer that question off on the pay-to-play.
I'd appreciate if you would.
Broad, but I don't know if you use specifics to be able to give you some type of answer that I'd be confident with.
All right. I'd appreciate if you could find out for me, because I will bring that up again. Last question, and I apologize for taking as long as I have, and maybe Mr. Cantwell might help me out with this or otherwise. The last meeting I'd asked if, before the work begins at Lake Renee, with the, I guess, the trace of Legionella that has been detected in the lake, and with a known resident at the lake having contracted Legionnaire's disease, is the township, and has this township moved on having that water and soil tested before it's disrupted, so that the residents of the lake and surrounding waterway, which runs down into the Timber Creek, are protected? Now, I'm well aware that sunlight, exposure, and all that, but the part of the lake that's going to be worked on is the part of the lake where the Legionella has been discovered. Have we moved on that? Because the work, I'm guessing, is getting ready at some point soon.
Well, I'll update you on the project. We've submitted a request for authorization to award a contract to state. We're waiting for the state to grant us approval to proceed with it. testing, I know the mayor's office was working with the county health department on that, and Ray, I don't know where that stands right now. I haven't talked to the mayor specifically about that issue. It's one of the items that will be addressed to make sure that it's safe. My understanding is that for it to be, and I'm not a plain doctor or biochemical engineer or anything, but it needs to be aerated or sprayed up in order to be contagious. And if we're just pumping out the water and mud material, they're not aerating it, so it's being turned into a mist, that's not an issue. But I wouldn't swear by that, that's just my understanding.
And I partially agree with that, but the Legionella, as it exists as a spore sitting in the water, anytime it's disrupted in a windy day, it becomes airborne, thus Legionella. That's why I'm cautioning and asking this township, and not just for the people of the lake, but I am one of the people of that lake. And knowing that one of my neighbors has Legionnaire's disease is very, very upsetting. And we want to keep it down to where it is and hope this lady does recover from her illness. But please, be very careful with this lake. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Mr. Reed?
Joe Reed, still Millbridge section of Gloucester Township. Mr. President, I had the opportunity Thursday to attend the Economic Development Corporation's monthly meeting. The meeting's held in the mayor's conference room. It was attended by the mayor, the committee, and Mr. Lechner. Found it to be extremely interesting, very informative. The members of the committee welcomed guests, involved us in the conversation and discussion. Learned an awful lot at that meeting that I didn't know before. Came away from it very positive. It was an enjoyable committee meeting. Then I got up Saturday morning and looked on my computer to see what happened in my town and saw in part, the township has paid a total of nearly $450,000 over the past 2 years in part for an energy master plan. We apparently signed a contract with Blue Sky Power, LLC. Several of the bills submitted to the township from Blue Sky were so vague and unspecific that it was difficult to attach them to anything and therefore pay the invoice. Blue Sky is owned by Benjamin S. Parvey, an attorney. He's been, no pun intended, he's been involved in the Haddonfield Democratic Club, is co-chairman of the Borough of Democrats, or Haddonfield rather, Democratic Municipal Committee. In 2008, the year he founded Blue Sky, he served as campaign manager for Camille Andrews, who we all know is Rob Andrews' wife. Excuse me. There's been some questions about the invoices that Blue Sky has provided to Gloucester Township. Apparently, there's been no question about the lack of details. The township members of the township have been quoted as saying, well, they figured Blue Sky had performed the work and they deserved to be paid. It wasn't specific at all. Oddly enough, Blue Sky, I don't know the amount, but I know is ranked number 3 in donations, political donations in Gloucester Township. I'm sure that's purely coincidental. Apparently, Mr. Parvey was asked, looking at his background, I'm envious. I mean, he's got tremendous education. He's got a very wide background, employment background, that's more specific to government involvement, lobbying, financial involvement. Apparently his specialty in law is the financial aspect of it. He's quoted somewhere saying that there's no question that he's an expert on green energy. I expected to see, looking into his background, that he was an engineer. He's not an engineer. He's got one engineer in his company. He's some kind of a biological engineer, which is fine, but it looks like his background, up until recently, including 2009, has been in a courtroom also. So everyone in the organization seems to be attorneys. The attorneys all seem to be involved in politics, and the contributions all seem pointed in one direction. As I said earlier, I thoroughly enjoyed the meeting on Thursday. There was one little glitch, and it was an invoice that, I believe her name's Joanne, and I think she's the treasurer for the group. She had an invoice that she hesitated to pay because it was not very specific. It didn't define, other than who the invoice was to be paid to apparently, what the invoice was for. There's been some question as to how far Blue Sky, apparently there's been some question as to how far Blue Sky has progressed in delivering this energy master plan. As I understand it, their invoicing is so vague that it can't be identified specifically what they've done. My younger years, I dealt with architectural engineers. These A&Es also dealt with the government. They could tell you how many pieces of paper they used in a given day for the copy machine. They had to report everything because it was the government. Governments. We seem to be doing just the opposite. When I questioned, and frankly wasn't paying attention when this invoice was first brought up, and I asked for the company invoicing the township, the committee, who the company was, the mayor repeated and said it was T&M, which I didn't think anything of until Saturday morning. When all of a sudden, we've gotten invoices from Blue Sky that aren't specific. It's questioned exactly where they're at in the project that we've already paid them approximately $450,000. And now all of a sudden, T&M, who they subcontracted with, which brings up why are we involving Blue Sky if T&M, who we haven't approved, is actually doing work? Why do we need a middleman? He's not doing it for the hell of it, for free. He's doing it at our cost also. So now, are we sending checks, or invoices rather, I'm sorry, invoices from T&M to a different entity that nobody's really been watching? What's going on? Thank you.
Yeah, I do. First off, there was a question regarding the years of service that the consultant had.
Thank you, I forgot that.
In 2000, I'll help you with it. In 2010, there was a submittal in 2009 for the 2010 year. There were actually two submittals for the energy consultant. And the one was presented by T&M Associates and Blue Sky Power. So that was a partnership, and T&M did have the years of service necessary to meet the requirements. The other company, and T&M is located, their branch is out of Morristown, Blue Sky Power is out of Camden. The other company submitting a proposal was Birdsall Service Group, with their main office located in Seagirt. And quite frankly, we did review these proposals, and the recommendation was to go with T&M and Blue Sky Power. So I want to put the rest, the first question about the years of service. Then
We didn't contract with T&M. We didn't vet T&M. We did Blue Sky.
T&M was under Blue Sky Power.
They were under Blue Sky Power, but we didn't vet T&M. We did Blue Sky.
Very clear on the front of the packet that it's T&M and Blue Sky Power.
So T&M signed also, or Blue Sky signed on their behalf?
T&A's information is brought throughout this document. There are examples of projects completed, solar projects dating back to 2003. Again,
So why didn't we contract with T&M? What was the importance to us of Blue Sky then?
Blue Sky was to do the energy management.
Well, then what was the function of T&M?
They're the engineers. They're the engineers to do the design.
So Blue Sky did the management of T&M.
Correct.
Why did we need Blue Sky? I mean, don't we have adults that could...
As far as I was concerned, T&M was not in a position to complete an energy master plan. They had never done that.
So they went to school at our expense, is what you're saying?
Well,
It's a joint application.
it's a joint application. That's why I don't, it's right here. You want to look at it?
No, I don't want to look at
There
it.
was a request for proposal, and that group joined together in submitting the proposal to the town. That's how I understand
Did we?
that
That's
package.
absolutely correct.
So we sent out a request for a quotation, request for a proposal, to one company, and two companies responded to it.
Well, we don't send it to any particular company, it's just out.
Right,
Whoever
right,
wants a group or
right.
individually or how.
We
they
advertised it,
respond,
and two
it's-
companies.
Two companies
Were they the only
together.
companies that responded to it?
There were the only companies that responded.
No one else, one company that,
Birdsall.
Birdsall and-
Birdsall.
oh, okay, Birdsall. And how many years were they in that
I
profession?
don't know their specifics, I'd have to go
Did they meet the criteria?
through. They did in terms of the years of service, yes.
And Blue Sky did not.
TNF did.
But T&M was a subcontractor.
It was a joint,
Joining it, correct.
They did it together.
Correct.
So who did we sign?
Let the council answer. Go ahead, Mr. Brady.
We signed a contract with Blue Sky Power in which T&M is also listed in there with their rates. And we'll go on to the next topic, which is.
Wait, I don't fully understand that one yet. So Blue Sky is the primary contractor.
Correct.
So then T&M is the subcontractor.
Partnership with T&M.
But you just told me that, read me what you just read again?
It was a partnership between T&M and Blue Sky.
It was Blue Sky the lead.
So it's,
Blue Sky took the lead, and T&M did work for Blue Sky.
it's the same level contractor
Same level as well.
as Blue Sky. I'm trying to, I've dealt with contractors before, and I've never seen two contractors at the same level in a project. The manager of a project is the manager of the project, and there's contractors below him that report to him. Now here you're saying, well, in this, it's not true. There's two contractors involved, and both of them are at the same level, even though one of them's a manager.
It's a partnership. It was a partnership.
So there's an additional company.
In theory, yeah, we could have signed an agreement with T&M, and then Blue Sky would have been a subcontractor. But it was the opposite. Blue Sky was the contract, T&M worked.
But T&M was qualified as to the longevity where Blue Sky was not.
But it came in as one proposed well. That they proposed to do the services for the township as one group joining together. They didn't propose.
Whose license was used then? Blue Sky's or T&M's?
What license?
They're a licensed contractor, correct?
They provided all the documentation. All the
Who's they?
Both companies.
So we used both licenses.
I advise you to go, if you'd like, go through the proposal.
Can I get a copy of that from your office?
You can.
Yeah, fell for it, but yeah, you can get it.
What's it called?
It's the request for proposal from T&M Associates of Blue Sky Power dated December 2009 for the 2010 calendar year.
Ro, do I need to text you for that or email you for that? Email? Okay, thank you, I'll do that.
Thank you. You want to complete your?
Yeah, I want to complete my what I was talking about. There was an agreement that was proposed to the township on February 1st from Blue Sky Power. In there, page 3, it says, Gloucester Township shall pay to Blue Sky $15,000 payable upon execution of this agreement. Such amount shall be applied to monthly invoices until exhausted. So that payment was not made until March 17th. And I personally know that they had been working on the Energy Master Plan from January through March and up to that date, because I sat in on all the meetings. If I missed one, I missed one, but I was there weekly. We would meet for an hour to an hour and a half to discuss what we were doing, and then we eventually got to the point where we were meeting bi-weekly. So when the submission came for the bill, $15,000, I had no question that the work was valid, because I had been working with them. And not only that, communicating with them via telephone, emails, things of that nature, and I knew what they were working on. So I was comfortable with that. The next invoice didn't come out until August 1st, which covered the balance of March, April, May, June, and July. The next invoice was November 1st. That invoice does specifically state on there for services from August 1st to October 31st. So if the question is, did they get a retainer up front, I don't view it that way, because there was work involved that would have at least hit the 15, if not exceeded the 15,000, based on their hourly rates. And these were team meetings that were held in the mayor's conference room, And we were meeting, like I said, weekly, and at some point bi-weekly. So I was comfortable with that bill.
Anyone else want to run into it?
Well, I mean, you have to look at what's going on right now. You just passed a bond ordinance and an application for the local finance board for the CSIP program, which will give money back from the state from the ESIP program to pay for the cost of these improvements. It's a refunding issue, so they've done the work to determine that the energy savings that we're going to initiate, which includes much-needed boilers for the high schools, I believe, for Triton and Highland. And like I say, it's covered by, the energy savings is covering the debt service. So ultimately what we'll do is we'll execute a lease with Blackburst Pipe, whereas they will pay their portion of the debt service back over a 15-year period. So that's just one aspect of the project. Blue Sky has also worked on an overall PPA, which is a private party agreement for putting solar at the various schools and township facilities. So that's probably close to a $20 or $25 million project. We did go out for bid one time with that, and they had to put the specs together. I saw the specs in that day. When the specs came back, we questioned the financial ability of the companies that submitted the proposals as to whether or not they could bring this thing to fruition. We also had a concern that we had heard from bond counsel that the comptroller's office will give a review and a seal of approval to these specs. So we didn't know that at the time, so we decided we're going to submit it to the comptroller's office. Right now, at this point, it's been at the comptroller's office for about a month and a half, 2 months. So we are waiting to get comptroller's approval to go back out for bid for this project.
Is that the state control?
That's a state, not Boxer. So, and we've been requesting to get it back, so we haven't received that back. In addition to that, we had a program for direct install. We did some stuff under and this is Blue Sky administering the EDCVG funds that we received, the 500 and almost 540.
579,000, I think.
Of which we funded some of that was for the ESIP, some of that was, I believe, for the energy savings plan.
Some was for the energy saving plan, some for direct install.
And
The other stuff was for the light and the solar panels.
And the solar that's up here, this building is right now saving $12,500 a year in energy savings, and we're getting SRECs back right now. The market has gone down on the SRECs, so we're waiting for that to come back up. In addition to that, they are working and they help to bring together the deal, I'm referring to Blue Sky Power, the deal with Project Navigator for Owens Corning, which we're still looking at, and and I think even in the article by Patch, they've indicated some estimated numbers that the township would bring back in $1.89 million over a 20-year period if that comes to fruition. We're moving already on the solar for the Choose Landing School. It's just an issue right now of when do we take possession of the property. So there are a lot of different elements to what's going on here. There's a lot of professionals working to try to, in the long run, bring our energy costs down and bring revenues into that weren't there before.
And Tom, Blue Sky has been paid through the EDC.
Yes.
Grant money.
They have been, and they'll also will be reimbursed from the PPAs on both the Owens Corning from Project Navigator and the PPA for the big deal, I call it, with the local schools once we get that one.
And part of the money that was paid to them also was for the education process, marketing of the recycling can.
A significant portion, yes, a significant portion. In fact,
Over $200,000.
yeah, I believe it was $217,500, and I want to talk about that for a little bit here. I'm using the data from the beginning of December because by the beginning of December, everybody pretty much had their single stream containers. So I did some computations independent of Glenn Engelberg, who's the recycling coordinator for the township, and I had calculated that based on I took 2 years past and calculated an average cost for December, January, and February, and I came to an average of $337,831.38 for the period of December 2010 through February 2011 and December 2009 through February 2010. I then took the bills that we were actually billed and the tonnage amounts for December 2011, January 2012, and February 2012. The difference is $38,694.92 in savings. If I extrapolate that for a full year, I'm projecting savings of $154,779.68 on our disposal fees. Glenn also put together some numbers for me, Glenn Engelbert. He's showing that in December 2011, our recycling tonnage was up 42%. January 2012 was up 49.8%, and February 2012 was up 35.8% for a total average of a weighted average of 42.5% as an increase in the recycling. He estimated, and he was working in the monies coming back from the tonnage grant, that the savings during that period was $39,339. I had $38,694. He did the same thing and extended it and came up with a figure of savings of $163,584. I'm at $154,779.
Am I adding those two numbers together, Tom? Your initial reduction of disposal fees and Mr. Engelbert's numbers?
No, because he's also trying to estimate the savings on.
So basically, you're estimating $150,000 savings, right?
My numbers are solid because mine are based on the actual tonnage from the amounts paid.
And what you're doing is you're drawing a correlation between the education and recycling.
Absolutely.
And the savings that we should expect to realize.
Absolutely.
This year and subsequent years.
Absolutely. And again, I realize it's taxpayer money, but the monies came from the New Jersey tonnage grant, and I had spoken personally with Joe Davis from the New Jersey tonnage grant, and he was extremely happy that we were embarking on single stream, and he was in complete agreement that the advertising campaign was appropriate.
Is there an increase in don't we get money back for recycling too?
You do, and that'll increase also.
Do you have an approximate?
I don't, because it's based on the final tonnage numbers that are submitted to the state, but that's our.
But that will definitely go up because we're going.
It'll drive our New Jersey tonnage grant monies up. Yes.
So that's on top of the $150,000.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there are a lot of things coming now to fruition based on the work and all the professionals involved, including Blue Sky Power, Concord Engineering, Remington Burning was involved in some of this. It just takes a while to get these things off the ground.
Tom, is this posted on our website at all?
I don't remember that.
I would suggest as an information for residents that we post these things on the website. I know it may take some time, but maybe you can work with the mayor's office in providing a section for the residents to see what the savings are, what we're doing with the energy, and then maybe expand upon that on other items.
And the belief is that it will increase as more and more people understand how, what goes into that container. I'm sure we've got people still at this point taking cereal boxes and putting them in trash before they should be going into the recycling container. And there's other things that would add up.
And just to add to that, Tom, with the invoices, and I know you're aware of it, because you sit in the meeting and you have meeting minutes that take place. But if someone else picked up that invoice, they wouldn't know what you know and what work was being done with the form. So
That's a fair statement.
going forward, it's possible that we can request from all of our vendors a more detailed invoices.
Yes. And his subsequent invoices do include a number of hours of work and what position it was paid for. But it could be more detailed.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You mentioned additional savings. Are there any additional expenses incurred in that?
Well, there's the capitalization of the containers trucks themselves. So you can't discount that. The fact of the matter was that when we decided to go single stream, we needed to buy new trucks anyway. Glenn knows that from sitting on the way. So we were looking at buying 4 new recycling trucks, same models as before. So it made sense to make the extra investment into the single stream containers. But again, I expect that to pay itself off after a period of time.
That's a requirement by the local agreement. Yes, sir.
Paul DiBartolo, Ohio Avenue, Blackwood. Cutting really right to the bone. It was reported that you were quoted as, when you were questioned about the lack of specificity, that you said that you figured they had done, this was a quote, they had done the work, they deserved to get paid. Now, I emailed you and questioned you. I don't know if you saw the email. Okay. Now, you felt what? I mean,
I felt that it was, that you were, in my opinion, you were misinformed, and I thought it was very sarcastic.
what was the quote? Were you misquoted?
No, it was not, and there was the rest of my quotes. It was taken out of context. I explained about the meetings, and I talked about all the time and effort that went into this in the weekly meetings, and Sean, that never made it into this article. So you know what? I questioned that.
Okay, well then I misunderstood. Based on the way I read it, it stated that there was a lack of specificity, and there didn't seem to be concern about that. If that's not the case, I'll move on.
And that was out of context. And I think, will you admit that we had further discussion in that meeting about the time and effort put in on this program, that the meetings that we held, and none of that was mentioned in here. It wasn't like I got a bill and I didn't know anything about it. I got a bill and I was involved in it every single day, either via phone or through these meetings. So I knew what we were doing.
Very good. I'm glad that is the case.
I wouldn't pay bills recklessly. I think that's what you put in your email.
I didn't use that word.
All right.
Reckless.
Okay. All right. I stated that I myself, and I didn't think anybody else would be in the habit of paying a bill without getting detail to anybody.
You said, I'm wondering, Mr. Carter,
If you're as reckless, okay.
your own money as you are with mine.
As it appeared to be the way it was written.
And I take exception.
I just said I misunderstood. There's misunderstanding from what I read. Okay, you have my apology. I'm glad that the detail is there. I hope that is the case. I'd like to move real quickly to the red light cameras. What has been said here tonight, especially with as many of them as there are. I've been personally received one red light ticket, which was thrown out. I did spend a day in court having to fight that. Now, the other day I'm driving down Blackwood-Clementon Road. As I'm approaching the light, I was within the speed limit, but the light went yellow. My normal driving habit, I just thought, I'm too close, I'll go through it. Second thought, slammed on the brakes and ended up pulling up. I was beyond the white line. The question is, I'm wondering, is there a champion for the red light cameras on council, or did someone, who are the stakeholders for that? Who championed that idea, or did it strictly come from the state?
Well, it came via the previous chief, if I'm not mistaken, Chief Smith, came to council with what the state was doing to inform us, and he said he wanted to look into it and did. Obviously, I believe Remington and Burdick went into that with him and which ones qualified, and then they made the application.
Okay, I don't consider myself a lawbreaker, and I guess I addressed this to the chief and the council. How would you respond to what I just stated? I think that happens quite commonly. I mean, it has created, it's actually, I'm thinking it's more dangerous now because of the indecision that it's creating. Because you're driving within the limit, you're approaching the light, it turns yellow, whereas you normally would go through and feel safe about it, all of a sudden you're thinking about the red light camera and you're jamming on the brakes, and now, for one thing, you're stopping beyond the line. How's that being dealt with? I think that's a common occurrence.
Yeah. Chief, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you're in the intersection when it's yellow, that is not a violation.
That's correct.
So, and I'm not sure if you stop in front of that solid white line, what that is. I can't imagine, but I'm not the expert.
What happens
is that
there,
a
right?
violation?
What you just described in terms of stopping at the amber light is not a violation.
Okay, so, I mean, I see flashes, and now I'm thinking, the last one I got, it was 3 weeks later, so when I opened it, I was in disbelief. I was trying to figure out when I had violated. Of course, I went online and I saw what was there, but, so now I'm thinking, gee, I wonder if my picture was snapped, and I wonder, a gentleman stood up here a number of months ago and said his wife received a ticket because she was coming to the right turn at Ariel Road and stopped short, but she was over the line. He said they received a ticket.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
I can tell you that in speaking with the court clerk just less than 2 weeks ago, the number of summonses of red light tickets that have been dismissed, like you're saying, that happened to you, are so minute.
Yes.
And I would have liked to review your video to see what occurred, but when this was brought to my attention, it was purged from the system, so I couldn't see it. But you know what you're describing about people receiving tickets, going through the line, we're just not seeing in court. It's just not happening.
Okay.
That's the best way I can answer it.
Thank you.
Chief, can I ask a follow-up question? Correct me if I'm wrong, but there is an officer that does review when whether it's a potential violation or violation before that ticket is submitted.
That's correct.
Yeah, it has to be reviewed by our
So
police department.
if Mr. DiBartolo was on that white line, the yellow light, he's going to say Mr. DiBartolo perhaps does not render a ticket. Oh, I brought him up.
In my particular case, the first time, that was a different issue. But I guess it must have been viewed by somebody. Somebody made a determination not based on the video because the video was unclear. They had to make a determination on the electronics. When I came into the court and I viewed the video with the officer in the back room, he said he was not qualified to make the decision. He'd have to show it to the prosecutor. The prosecutor didn't feel it was worthy to look at, and he told me, take a seat and wait and get called up. The judge threw it out finally, because when I finally got there at noon, when I was finally called up, the prosecutor said there wasn't enough evidence. So I sat all day waiting, and it didn't seem like the system was too friendly in dealing with the situation.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Joanne?
Joanne Carr, 50 Clement Drive. Hello. I was up before and a couple of weeks ago, and I asked about the profit from the red light cameras, and we had made $1.3 million. And
Joanne, can I say fines, profit, they're fines. They're
well,
violations.
the realization from the fines, after we paid the state, after we paid the company, the township realized $1.3 million. And my question at that time was, rather than putting it into general fund or having it, because it is going against our 2012 budget, you know, to buy something outright or to pay something. When Mr. Polidoro had said, you know, about the zero increase for the taxes, that's wonderful. I truly appreciate that. I understand that you are reticent to reduce our taxes because you can't be guaranteed that next year will be the same. However, instead of reducing our taxes, couldn't we reduce our debt? Can't we use any extras that we have to get rid of some debt that we have, which will in effect help us later?
I guess we could.
You could, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Why?
Because the problem is that, as you just stated, you don't know what's going to happen next year, you don't know what's going to happen the year after that. And now that we fully anticipated the red light cameras, that's not going to be a one-time revenue boost.
Well, when I was up here 2 weeks ago, I had mentioned that this is a 5-year pilot program. Why would you count on something until it is truly established? Anything that comes, like, I don't know whether I'm mixing apples and oranges right now, but somewhere tonight you anticipated $1,290,000, and next year you're anticipating an extra million
Yeah, for the red light cameras.
for the red light cameras.
For the court.
And you weren't far off the mark, because we realized 1.3.
And I think that's a conservative number when I put in there.
So, but
And I have to say, I misspoke when I talked to you about this because I thought that what was said was 2.5 million.
No.
And I didn't realize that
No.
you were talking about 1.3.
no, I had my little list, and I try to be as accurate as possible when I get up here. But my question is, I listened to everything that you said tonight about all of the projected savings, and I appreciate that. You guys are working hard to bring revenues in. But why do we have to spend it all? Why do we have to anticipate the savings that we're getting, or the to me, there's a difference between the cost of doing business going down and getting money in. Why does that windfall have to go against the regular general housekeeping?
Because I'm not your bank. If I have the money and I can appropriate it, I should be appropriating.
I had a brother like that.
On that, when I first got on council, I forget the exact number of police officers we had on. It was 110. And the prior chief would always say, we are definitely understaffed.
Mhm.
And I don't know the exact number, I know we're somewhere around that.
I believe we're still at 110, Chief,
Well, 113 went off.
because we brought in the 3.
And I know that we were trying to improve our capital budget program. We're trying to get things done in the town.
Mhm.
So although you and I run our houses, like what you're saying, sometimes it doesn't translate necessarily the same here. On Sunday, I was with Darren at the Blackwood Kiwanis field, and he was showing me what appeared to be a steel girder sticking up out of the ground where our children play, specifically his children at that field. And I called Glenn and I asked Glenn to contact Public Works to see if he can fix or to address the problem. So there are a lot of different things in this town that have to be addressed. And if we don't address them, then they're going to get worse and cost more.
I hear that. I appreciate that. I agree with what you're saying. I don't like the idea of making purchases on the guessing that we're going to be bringing more money in. You said that you upped the red light camera income by $1 million. However, if the red light cameras are working as they should, those realizations should go down. So next year you'll be behind.
We haven't seen that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Barry?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Joshua Berry, Whiteacres Drive. Before I get to the topic that I came to talk tonight, I want to follow up on a couple things that happened earlier tonight. First, in the budget, thank you for introducing it, and anytime you can get a zero budget or a zero increase is always a good thing, assuming that it wasn't gimmicked to do it. But I'd like to know, as a citizen, where can I view this? Will it be available on the website? How can we get it?
Yeah, I believe we will post it on the website. We've done that in the past. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Second point on how pay-to-play affects shared services. This is something that we added into the ordinance back in June. So, Mr. Solicitor, you've had this since June. The ordinance hasn't been modified, and I'll say it again in case there's any confusion.
Modified since June?
It has not been modified. It is, right, and certainly I had emailed it to you then, so you've had it. When it comes to shared services, right, there's two issues that we were worried about. The first issue was a town like Cherry Hill has pay-to-play and we don't. Then what happens if we try to get a shared service agreement with them? There could be a problem. Certainly getting the pay-to-play ordinance will fix that, and we're in the middle of that, so I will let that go for another night. The second issue is, what if we have a pay-to-play ordinance and a Pine Hill or a Runnymede or somebody else does not? And again, I will state this again, we took proactive measures with the attorneys who wrote the original ordinance to place language in there to protect that shared service. So I will state it again, we are in no jeopardy with a shared service with another town if we have it and they don't. We could be in jeopardy, however, if they have it and we don't. So are there any questions from anyone up there about this? Okay. Third thing I want to follow up on is the comment that Mr. Reed made about Blue Sky being the third largest donor. That was a factual error. Third largest donor is Inverso and Stewart, our independent auditors. And I'll be honest that when I read the Blue Sky article, I was extremely concerned about having invoices that have no detail. And Mr. Cardis, I completely believe you, and I will accept the work that you state that Blue Sky did. It's not a question of that, but as Mr. Mercado pointed out, someone who is not in these meetings would not know. And you know, I work in private industry, and in my entire career, when our independent auditors came in, they looked at our invoices and they wanted to see that detail. They want to know, and now I work for a managed services company that does engineering services, a lot like Remington and Vernick, except we deal in the software world. And when our people are working for our clients, some of them have to give time cards and deliverables. It's got to be very specific because their auditors require it. When I travel, and I do a lot of traveling now, every expense I do, I get a spreadsheet every month. I have got to itemize what was that expense and what client was it for, because our auditors will require it. And so the concern is we've got our independent auditors who have donated nearly $17,000 over the last 2 years to your campaign and gave you a glowing report in last year. I believe it was in April, and I actually downloaded it and read it again. They reported no irregularities. Again, that's part of the concern, and I am very happy that you will now make sure that all invoices are properly detailed. Again, we're not just up here to yell at you, we're up here to make change, positive change. And so if we can have invoices that are detailed, exactly. If Blue Sky did the work, the invoice is what documents it. So there should be no question. And then it comes to a matter of, if we look at $85 an hour for an engineer, and what was it, $265 or $285 for executive, I'll be honest, the $85 an hour, that's a very competitive rate. That's a good rate for, you know, a journeyman to a senior engineer. Though the $265 concerns me, and I'd like to know how much executive time are we paying for. Because what many companies do is, instead of charging you $85, they'll charge you $90 or $100, and the executive cost gets eaten out of that as a cost center. But again, without that information, we won't know. But what I came to talk to you about tonight is, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, I actually didn't until it came up on my Facebook page this morning. This is National Sunshine Week. Sunshine Week is the week where you celebrate and embrace transparency and openness in government. As part of this effort, Senator Loretta Weinberg of Bergen County is pushing hard in our state legislature to make sure that all of our MUAs, our commissions, our boards, such as our Housing Authority and the Economic Development Council, that they're included under OPRA, that they've got to have minutes, that they're included under the Open Public Meetings Act as well. Transparency is not just something you slap on a bumper sticker in the back of your car and say, we have it. Transparency is something that is baked into your process and your mentality and your culture. To give you an example, a number of years ago, a family member of mine, all right, let me give you an example of when something has to be baked in, and it's got to be systemic lifestyle. A relative of mine moved to the People's Republic of Berkeley out in near San Francisco. Thank you, Dan, for appreciating that joke. And after living there for 6 months, she became a vegetarian, part vegan, part vegetarian, whatever she wanted to call herself. Well, she started to get sick, really sick, as in muscle problems, joint problems. And after a couple of years of living there, she finally went to a doctor who sized her up in 2 seconds. He said, how long have you been a vegetarian? And she goes, about 3 or 4 years since I moved here. He said, have a burger. The problem that she was having, her entire body was not getting the nutrients it needed, because as carnivores, we do need to have protein and fats and stuff that you can only get from animals. And the reason that I say this is you can be a vegetarian, you can be a pure vegan, but in order to do it, you can't just eat tofu. You've got to take vitamin supplements that give you what you're not getting from meat. It's a lifestyle change. It's a systemic change. You can't just put on a pair of Birkenstocks and grow your hair long and call yourself a vegetarian. So when it comes to transparency, it is in everything that you do. I'm going to talk about my local PTA for a minute, because I'm very proud of the work that they did. These are volunteers, soccer moms, hockey dads, and last year's president, his name was Gil. Not that you really cared what his name was, but he was always talking about, we will be transparent. As a result, the budgets that we saw every meeting, every month, contained everything that came in, everything that came out, the balance of the bank account. And it was only maybe $20,000 to $30,000 at most, but still, whenever they made a mistake, they talked about it. It wasn't hush-hush. It wasn't, okay, let's hide it. They owned it. That's transparency. Whenever there were issues or problems, it was baked into everything that they do. So just to talk about some things that I saw tonight that could improve our transparency, and again, we're talking cultural systemic change here, even when you do a vote. Mr. Council President will read the ordinance or the resolution, and immediately it's roll call. So if any of you have anything to say about it, other people have already voted, and then you can raise your question. What would be transparent in that case is, here's the ordinance, let's open this up for discussion amongst you, and then you can raise questions and talk, then close discussion, then vote. The appearance of going straight to a vote, and again, it's appearance and it is perception, is that you've already decided how you're going to vote. And unless you had already talked about it at the workshop and it's in the consent agenda, that's not transparent, because how is someone going to know if there's a drop in ordinance or something that was different, what to do if there are any questions. And we spoke about this in a couple of issues, but that is baking transparency into your process. It's when you're appointing someone, you talk about the connections you have with them. If someone's wife is best friends with that person's wife, you need to talk about it. If that person was allegedly the best man at an elected official's first wedding, you need to talk about that. And it's not that that person has to be excluded from the contract. If they're qualified and you can, vet as a personal friend, he can do it and he's a stand-up character, okay, but you need to talk about it. It needs to be brought to the surface. We don't need to have folks like myself or Sean or someone else having to dig to find this information. Because sometimes, just because it's available for 3 or 4 Google searches, making multiple connections, that's not transparent. Talking about it and being open, that's transparent. So again, it's something that you're going to hear me talk about a lot about, because it needs to be it's a culture change. It's a mindset. It's an attitude. You know, are you doing anything in secret? Yes or no? Ask yourself this. So the people know what you're doing. So I'm sorry I've taken too much of your time. Have a nice night.
Thank you, Josh. Anyone else? Mr. Paldor?
Good evening again, Ray Polidor, Ariel. Just want to make sure I understood something correctly, just a follow-up on something I said earlier. With the increase in revenue, we're cautious not to, we look at what we anticipate with caution, thus the reason we do not lower taxes. It's one of the reasons that we don't look at the option of lowering taxes, because we're not quite sure what we anticipate will come to fruition. Did I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
But yet we spend more money, and we continue to go out and buy new things and raise our capital expenditures and various things without that same caution. Did I understand that also correctly?
I don't think we're being reckless.
I didn't say reckless, I said increasing.
I mean, we do need a capital budget, and there is a need for $5 million in work. I mean, this is a big town. I'll be happy to share that document with you. You can look at the streets being done. One of your developments is benefiting from the capital with Lake Renee and the NJEIT program. That's loan money.
I'm talking about local revenue, local expenditures. And Tom, this is I'm not taking a shot at you. Please don't take it as that. I just want to know why, when revenues continue to increase, I can't even imagine that this council's even thought of reducing taxes to the taxpayers. We're cautious because we're not sure we're going to get as much as we want, but we're going to spend because we do have more money. We'll spend, but we won't give it back. Once you have it, it's any tax. When somebody introduces 1/2 of 1%, it's only 0.5%. The door's open. Forget about it. It never comes back.
This budget is a budget that meets our needs. This budget is tight. What you're referring to, and what you referred to before, was the capital program. And if you're saying we shouldn't be spending money on capital, respectfully, I disagree with you.
Not just capital. We don't use the same caution with spending as we do with the possibility of maybe lowering our property taxes.
Ray, most of this budget, as you already know, is confined. There is no flexibility. We get a pension bill. They tell us what it is. We have our debt service. We know what that is. We have trash pickup. We have a contract with the trash company. We have health insurance. There's very little variables here within this budget.
Not everything in the way of expenses goes up, but I see our revenues raising more than our regular expenses, but we decide, we've got recyclable materials that are going to come back and raise revenue, and those godforsaken red light cameras, more revenue. And stores that are popping up on the southern end, more revenue.
Call revenue, it's fines. They're fines.
Maybe
They're fines for violation. They are.
Fines for violations.
That's right.
Based on safety. Is that?
Based on the approval by DOT, based on the court system, based on the review by the police officer. There is no violation. They see a violation, they issue it.
But it's
fines. Keep saying revenues.
We can word it however we want. Like I said, I'll agree with 2. 2 are just money makers, in my opinion. And again, I would never ever disrespect our police chief or any of our police officers. But like Mrs. Carr said, if you're going to spend money,
there's a review.
Maybe instead of floating bonds for police cars, maybe we can buy police cars outright, and then maybe still have a little left over to give us some back. Maybe, just maybe.
Saves one life in any of those intersections. That's where every cent.
Do you think Millbridge and do you think Rita's Water Ice has that activity? Little Gloucester. And,
never know.
Well, we're going to spend 5 years looking at it, aren't we?
I'm sure if the chief were to go back and look at Millbridge, he could find an incident where somebody blew through that intersection at 60 miles an hour.
Oh, I can understand that, but look at the screeching of the brakes on some of those as well. Like I said, I'm not going to argue with you on the red light cameras and revenue. it is what it is. I think there's too many, but my only point was, once again, we're very cautious in giving us our money back, but we're not so cautious when we spend it. And that's all I got to say.
I disagree, Ray. We are cautious in how we spend it. We haven't increased people when they leave. We haven't increased them. We didn't hire a director of recreation. We put it under Public Works. We look at everything. I think that capital budget was like $9 million. They brought it down to 5 to make it, workable. To sit there and say that we're not cautious is totally wrong. That's your opinion. I appreciate your opinion, but we are cautious, and we will look at that budget and see what's in there.
Huh?
All right?
I haven't seen a head nod. I've seen nods because I'm talking too long, but I haven't seen any heads nod up and down when I mentioned maybe reducing our property taxes and giving some of our money back. Because if we get some of our money back, we're liable to spend it, and we're going to pay tax on it anyway. One way or another, you'll get it, but we'll have something for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no other hands, we close the second public portion. Calling directors and council, please. Oh, I'm sorry. We will set the public hearing.
April 23rd.
April 23rd, which is a Monday, no?
Yes.
Monday. April 23rd would be the public hearing for the budget. And Tom, after that, any changes will occur
We should
before
set
that.
up a budget.
We will.
Review, and then if there are changes, then we would have to fix them.
Okay.
Mr. Mopsa.
Nothing to report at this time.
Mr. Lechner.
Nothing to report, thank you.
Chief Earl.
Nothing to report, thank you.
Mr. Carpenter.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Cardis.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Hutchison.
Just want to say we as council appreciate the comments from everybody who came tonight and stayed. Very informative. Thank you.
Mr. Schmidt.
I too would like to thank everyone for coming out this evening and staying the entire time. Thank you very much for your comments.
Mr. Seiler.
I'm pleased to see the administration submit a budget, introduce a budget without a tax increase. And we'll take a look at it and see if there are any cuts, any additional cuts that we can make.
Mrs. Gentile.
I also would like to thank everyone for coming out tonight.
Mrs. Strader.
I'd like to thank everyone for their comments. I appreciate the comments, and also I wanted to congratulate Dalton, even though he's not here at the moment. And have a good night.
Mr. Mercado.
Thank you for coming out this evening. Congratulations to Dalton Smith, and also to the Aerial Post for recognizing him. A few weeks back, the Aerial Post, each year they sponsor a Patriots Pen and Voices of Democracy program for the Mullen Schools and Timber Creek High Schools, and they award cash prizes to individuals that talk about patriotism in the United States and Voices of Democracy. So I want to thank the Post for providing that, and also recognizing Mr. Smith today. Thank you to our mayor, our directors, and also Mr. Cardis on putting a tight budget with a 0-cent increase. Look forward to going through that in the next few weeks. And lastly, thank you to Reverend Wilson for the invocation today. He's a pastor of my church in Choose United and has been a resident of our township for the last 5 years. And he's an individual that has injected life into that church over the last 5 years. We're kind of life support, and his enthusiasm and his leadership has helped that particular community in Glendora, not only with church-related activities, but also community-related activities. And I believe there's a Veterans Breakfast this Saturday.
The Canby County Veterans Breakfast. All veterans are welcome, 9 o'clock. Program and breakfast.
So thank you for coming out, and thank you for your work, and have a good evening, everyone.
Mr. Green-Keating.
I'd like to thank all the residents for attending tonight's meeting. Also, just to add to Councilman Mercado, the essays were also for Ariel Presbyterian School as well, which is down in the Ariel section. So it was honoring some young folks that really have a talent in writing, and I think they were very, very good. I also want to thank the mayor and Tom and all the directors for continuing to push for giving us the services that we need and keeping our costs down so that we can obtain a 0 increase. race. So I thank each and every one of them. With that, I ask for a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? All those opposed? Have a good night.